Hello and welcome. Don't know if you guys can hear me, but I assume it is coming through. Hopefully there's no feedback or anything. If there is, I'm going to put my headphones on just in case. Alrighty, I think that's coming through now. Last time it was echoing, so I'll pop these on just in case so it comes through my headphones. Welcome, guys. Just thought check in, do another quick sort of rundown of the teams and then a bit of a rundown on my own team because there is a little bit of a issue that I may be faced with, which you can probably no doubt guess if you've seen the teams as to what it is. But we'll quickly just jump across to the teams, which is virtually what I'm chatting about here. Let me just stop my screen sharing, start it again, and I'll switch across very, very quickly. Thanks for joining us. We have one person that's joining me at the moment. It is a little bit of a later stream. Apologies. I was out. So let me just slide across to the teams, which should be coming through now. Alrighty. So there we go. Let's just quickly run through the teams. If you can hear me, just feel free to put in the chat in YouTube. Just a thumbs up, a yes, no, sick of your voice, all that sort of stuff. But quickly just run through the teams. We won't go into too much detail. Last week's live stream was way over time. So no real ramifications with the first game. Pretty stock standard apart from those that have Gipkus. He is omitted. Moving on to the next game. No real ramifications there, either team, apart from Giath, if anyone has him as a bit of a pod. Then we have, where are we? Sydney, no changes to Adelaide either, which is interesting. For Port Adelaide, for those of you who have Jackson Mead, thanks, Mason. Cheers for tuning in, mate. You're coming through as a repeat viewer, so thanks a lot for tuning in, mate. Jackson Mead, he has been omitted, and that's going to stuff up my fantasy team, but c'est la vie. And Burgoyne's still in the side. It looks like he hasn't been omitted. So for those of you who do have him, if he was out of the side, he'd obviously be listed there as an out. So assuming he's in. Buse hasn't come back to the... Oh, no, sorry, he's still in the team at the moment, I think. Brisbane, whole host of changes now. It's been a bit of a regular thing for Brisbane. Fair few changes over the past few weeks due to illness, COVID, all that sort of stuff, and omissions this week because they do gain Zorko, Rich, which are two big SuperCoach relevant players. McInerney, for those of you who have him as a bit of a pod. The outs, Caden Coleman, for those of you who jumped on him, he's a good little pod, but unfortunately for those of you who do, not too good for your prospects there. Gold Coast, no real issue apart from the fact that Elijah Hollins, who a lot of people have in their team as a bit of a loophole option. Now, unfortunately, for those of you who are relying on him as a bit of a loophole option, he has caused a bit of an issue here because he is making his debut for Gold Coast this weekend. But he could actually prove to be a bit of handy cover as a mid-forward, I think he is. So see how he goes. High-rated prospect and high draftee as well, so see how he goes. Keep an eye on him for future weeks if you have any trades left to bring him in. Moving on to Western Bulldogs, get back Norton. Not so much SuperCoach relevant, but a big inclusion for them. And likewise for Melbourne, now a big SuperCoach relevant player here, goes without saying. The big pig himself, the big piggy Oliver. Clayton Oliver comes back into the side after that fractured or broken thumb that he had surgery on. So looking forward to having him back in my side. Absolutely love the big old pig. Moving on to Sunday and Carlton, my mob. No real big inclusions, SuperCoach relevant, but the big out, and it's going to be a massive, massive ramification across the board for those of you who have him, which is pretty much half the competition, and it is Georgie boy, George Hewitt. Bit of an it reference there for those of you who are just thinking I had a stroke or something. he is out through back soreness. So Carlton have come out and said. So that's going to throw a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons there and test the depth of everyone's defence bench. So we'll roll through that in a bit more detail when I'm rolling through my team. And then for the Giants, they've had a few outs, and it looks like they've absolutely thrown in the towel for the rest of the year and brought in a host of changes. For those of you with Braden Preuss, he comes back into the side, even though he is named in the first 18. You would have noticed on Twitter that we did put a little bit of a question mark next to him, even though he's not on the extended bench, because we just can't trust GWS. He could be a late out, given that they have named Briggs, who also can be a bit of a ruckman or relief ruckman. So you'd think that Preuss will play, being in the starting 18, but who knows? And there's a whole host of youngsters there for them. Josh Kelly, unfortunately, goes out with concussion, has been in really good form in recent weeks. Tom Green, who we identified over the past couple of weeks in the podcast and vodcast as someone to upgrade, and now he's giving you a bit of an excuse to do it. He has been not omitted, but he has been managed, they say here in the team sheets. And then moving on to the second last game, Collingwood and Essendon. No real SuperCoach relevant plays for the Pies. And Essendon, this is going to be a real, I guess, a lot of people are going to be relying upon this guy who's named first up as Massimo D'Ambrosio, who is unfortunately named on the extended interchange bench. So we don't know, or we won't know until around about, when do the games come out? 6:25, 6:20 tomorrow, before tomorrow night's game, whether he plays or not. But if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say he's not going to play because obviously Essendon coming off the back of a nice win. I don't think there's anyone in defence that he could dethrone, unfortunately for him. Don't know how he played in the VFL, if he really blew anyone out of the water. I'll have a quick look shortly when I'm rolling through my team. But apart from him, no other players there of note. And then for West Coast and St Kilda, Greg Clark, for those of you who do have him on the bench, he's a nice bit of, I guess, cover there for, I don't know, if you need to swing someone back for Hewitt, and creates a little bit of a hole there. You've got Greg Clark, again, on the extended interchange bench, so we won't know until sort of tomorrow night, until teams are finalised. And then St Kilda, as you would have heard, that Rowan Marshall has been suffering from a little bit of illness, not COVID, and did miss the training session today, I think it was. It came out. But they are confident that he's going to take his place, especially being the last game of the round. But it does cause a little bit of a headache there because even though he will be named, you'd think it's not going to be a late out until then. Sorry, an out until then, but it could potentially be a late out, which will really annoy me because I'm actually looking at bringing him in along with a whole host of other coaches out there, no doubt. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, Tom Campbell is the other ruck option. They may bring him in as a bit of sort of relief for Marshall, considering that he is coming off illness if he does play, to really shoulder that load, which doesn't bode well for Marshall, considering he hasn't been scoring well when sharing the ruck with Ryder in recent weeks. As we know, Ryder has been ruled out for 5 to 6 weeks, so virtually the rest of the season. But yes, probably a good thing that he has a bit of relief there. But I think Ratton's come out and said that Marshall will be taking taking the ruck mantle, given Ryder is out. Apart from that, nothing really to speak of in terms of inclusions. So let's flick across to my team. Alrighty, let me see if I can just zoom this in because it looks pretty small. I'll at least expand this. Apologies. I'll see if I can zoom this in. Don't know if it's going to work. Yep, I think that's working. Let me just line it up properly. And then you can see. So I noticed last week, because it is actually filming in 720, which is annoying, but it is what it is. Alrighty, so onto my team. Make the team announcement discussion pretty snappy compared to last week. So as you'll see there is a red dot in my team, or at least a hollow red dot. Sorry, before I get into my team, Mason, you have notified in the comment, and we have another viewer as well. So whoever that is, feel free to join in the discussion. Put your comments in the comment section, that side or this side. I can't remember which side it is because this is mirrored. But Mason says he has a high break even. I'd wait a week just in case he has a stinker and plummets. I assume you're talking about Rowan Marshall there, potentially. Which, yes, probably it's a good tactic to use, I think. I think a lot of people will still be jumping on Marshall, and probably more so out of hope that he's going to play this week. I'll get to the reason why. Yes, he is talking about Rowan Marshall. I'll get to the reason why shortly as to why I'm thinking of bringing him in this week. Otherwise, I could afford to wait. And part of the reason is, I won't go into great detail just yet, but the player that I'm looking to trade out to him has a super high break even and is probably going to drop around about 20 to 30K. So I'm kind of playing a bit of the stock market in a sense there. So I'll get to that in a second, but very good point there, Mason, and we'll discuss that in greater detail. But let's just roll through the team now. So no real changes. I mean, as you would have seen in the podcast and vodcast last week, I didn't make any trades. I haven't made any trades for the past 2 weeks now, 3 weeks, I think 2 weeks running now. Because as you will see, I am down to 3 trades. And I'm kind of paying more attention to leagues now as opposed to overall. I am still trying to gun for the top 1,000 finish, but I did slide back to just a touch outside the top 4,000, 4,000 and something. So, yeah, I am looking to at least qualify for my Cash League finals. I need at least 1 win to guarantee. If other teams around me lose, I will get the spot, but I kind of want to get that win just to guarantee it. And then for the SuperCoach Edge Cash League, which have a look out for next season because we will be running that again. And to gain access to it, you can sign up as a Patreon member. But we may alter that slightly so we can do it outside of Patreon, so you're not forced to do it through Patreon. But anyway, c'est la vie. So this is kind of my team. I was looking to do no real trades apart from Marshall. But with Hewitt being out, it causes a little bit of a conundrum. And I wasn't wanting to be reliant upon D'Ambrosio. So it has thrown a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons there for me because I am reliant upon him to play. The option I do have is to swing Baker back into defense and then swing Will Kelly forward and then put Will Kelly onto the bench and then Hobbs at F6. And then with Baker being in defense, switch him on field for Hewitt. Hewitt comes off onto the bench. So that's probably the logical scenario and probably something that I should do. But, however, I spoke of before the trade-in of Marshall, and it was going to come at the expense of that man in Baker, who I traded in 3-4 weeks ago, who just hasn't hit the mark at all. He's sputtered it up, to be frank. As a pod as well, he's really hurting me because compared to someone who's in 20% of teams, for example, if they have a shit one, at least 20% of the competition's going to be affected. With Baker, he's actually in 4% of teams. So there's 5,941 teams that are affected every time he puts in a shit one. And I am a part of that. That's an unfortunate number. So just having a look, obviously you can probably guess where I bought him in. It's around 16. And from then on, his scores have tapered from 90 to 70 to 61. And that's kind of the breaking point, is the fact that he scored 61. And I know Richmond played a shit one as a whole against North, but to score that poorly against a relatively, poor defensive side in North Melbourne is kind of the nail in the coffin for him. And the fact that when I brought him in, he was 493.3, went up 13.6K, but then has dropped. And to drop, nearly 37K since when I brought him in. 23.2K since I brought him in isn't good enough. And the big issue is, so the scenario is, and the logical, like I said, is swinging Baker into defense to cover for Hewitt. But if I keep Baker, this is what I face. Potentially a loss of 22.9K, and he gets to a price range which is going to make it super hard to trade him to someone of worth. Now, Mason, you brought it up just before in the comment section that, yes, Marshall does have a relatively high break even. If he does put in a stinker and plummets off the back of, a limited preparation being pretty sick, yes, fair enough. But can I bank on that? And it is a risk because I'll go into Marshall's profile actually and just have a quick look. So 447 was what Baker is looking to drop. And Marshall, so he has a break of 107. It's not too high. It is achievable.
given that, without that, you can probably, going through his scores as well, if you haven't seen the lowdown on Marshall's scores without Ryder, you can probably guess as to what they are. It's that one, that one, that one, and he played, I think, the last quarter without Ryder, and a bulk of his points were in the last quarter. So if he was to put in a shit one, say he scores 75, he's only going to drop 14.3K. So you could probably do it, I think. It'd probably be touch and go. Yeah, you're totally right, Mason, just with regards to Baker. You've said there, sorry, I'll pop these comments on the screen so other people can see. You've said Baker's Mr. Fix-It, which hurts his relevance and never secures a role. Exactly right. And that was part of the risk that I took with Baker. And it was stupid in retrospect because I knew that firsthand. But I thought to myself, well, Baker's scores have been good enough, even though he has been sort of Mr. Fix-It still. He hasn't been marooned up forward, which in the first 8 games of the year, he was marooned up forward, and that really limited his ceiling. But then from round 9 onwards, and when I got him in round 16, he was playing along the wing, through the middle, and in defence, playing shorts role. But of course, as luck would have it, and as bad luck would have it in my case, he's now been pushed forward, limited time in defence, and yeah, it hasn't been good. So I can't bank on him, or more so Dimmer, actually playing him in that position that he was scoring the most points in. But yeah, so one of those things that, 447, he's pretty much around the same mark, pretty much bang on, actually. If Marshall scores a 75, but I don't know if I can bank on that. If Ryder was still playing, I would say yes, there's a fair chance of that happening. But who's to say he actually feels 100% on game day? It actually helps as well that the Saints are playing in the very last game of the round. He has as much time as possible to recover from his illness. And, it's been well documented, those players that have had COVID come back the next week and they kind of struggle. However, probably Mason Redmond from the Dons has been a bit of an exception to that rule. He absolutely killed it when he returned from COVID. So, yeah, it's hard to say, really, as to what I should do. If I was to keep Baker, that is the risk that I'm going to run, is because at the moment you'll see I've only got 2K in the bank. So that's one scenario. Scenario 2 is trading Baker to Marshall. And then Marshall comes on field F6. And then Hobbs will be... So the shit thing is I don't have anyone in the midfield at the moment that's defensive midfielder. But I don't think there's anyone that would really be running a Crisp or a Short or a Hewitt or a Sinclair for that matter in midfield. And if you are, you're probably not maximising the amount of points because the amount of quality of straight-out midfielders on offer. But it is what it is. Not much I can do about it. If I was to do that, I would be relying upon D'Ambrosio. So at least we get to see what the finalised teams are tomorrow night. And if D'Ambrosio is named, I'm going to trade Baker in all, probably 99% surety. Going to trade him to Marshall. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. The other option, which I was thinking about, which I'll probably hold off on now because you can do it, and a lot of people are doing it. If you have a look down here, sorry, just to run through the hottest trade-ins and trade-outs, you'll see Jai Cully is the most traded-in player by 0.6% ahead of Noah Cumberland. Noah Cumberland, of course, is on the bubble, playing his 3rd game this week, and he's projected to go up 77.2K for the round. So, for those people that are jumping on him, it's a really good move if you have him, if you have that option. And the thing is, with Cumberland and Cully, it's hard to separate them because they are both midfield forwards. We spoke about it in the podcast, Liam and myself. And just quickly as well, Liam has texted through. I'm running solo at the moment because he said he's tied up and he has a bit of a headache. So it is what it is. All good. So more time for you guys to throw some questions in and comments, and I'll get around to those as well because I hate just talking to myself and talking through my team because it is quite shitful. So feel free to here we go. We do have a comment here from Taylor McKenzie. Thanks for joining us, mate. He says, "Hey, Damo, I like the Baker to Marshall move. Thanks, mate." Yeah, I mean, a lot of people I think as well might be thrown off by Marshall's illness, and probably fair to say. I mean, at this time of year, it is a bit of a risk to be taking that sort of risk, considering a lot of people would be in the similar scenario that I am with 3 trades. But you kind of can't be too cautious, I think, especially if you're gunning for SuperCoach head-to-head finals and in cash leagues. You kind of can't afford to sit on your hands. And I probably, implore or promote some people to, if you do have 3 trades at least, 2 trades probably is pushing it, but 3 trades, if you are, even if you've got 2 trades, so for example, and you are looking to make your SuperCoach finals and you do need a win this week to guarantee a final spot, I wouldn't mind it, at least using one of those trades. And that's what I'm looking to do this week. And that's probably part of the reason why I'm trading out or using a luxury trade to bring in Marshall off the back of Baker. So anyway, back to the trading and trade outs. So my third option, which is where I was getting to, is Jai Cully. And I was going to bring him in on the cusp of his second game at the expense of Hobbs, which would afford me, 219.2K? No, 0.2K. I don't know, something like that. My maths are probably wrong. But that gives me enough cash for the last 2 trades. And one of those trades would still be Baker to Marshall. But if I was to do that, it would obviously only leave me with the 1 trade for rounds 20, 21, 22, and 23. So 1 trade for the next 4 weeks, which is a bit too risky. I do like taking a risk, but not to that extent. And as you would have heard in the podcast over the past few weeks, and probably last year as well in our first season, I have been going on about the fact that my team name is DJ Trade a lot, and it's a bit of a play on words with DJ Mix a lot, but it's true in a sense because I do love to trade and I trade too much. And over the years, I've tried to rein it in a fair bit. So I've probably been a bit more frugal than anything. So, yeah. But, yeah, sorry, Taylor's just sent in a question here. If D'Ambrosio doesn't play, are you accepting a donut? I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet, but I'm not too sure if you joined at the point of the stream when Mason pretty much said you could. I'll bring it back up again here, just in reference here to Rowan Marshall. He says he has a high enough break even, and he has 107, and it could afford to wait a week just in case he has a stinker and plummets. Now, I would be banking on the fact that he needs to score around about 75 odd, which according to SuperCoach Gold indicates that Marshall will drop to pretty much identical to what Baker's score will drop to, which is about 447. So, yeah, I could potentially do that. And that's probably the sensible option to an extent because it is still a risk because Marshall still could come out with full fitness on Sunday, have, 60% ruck time or 70% ruck time and absolutely smash it. And then I'm stuck with Baker for almost the rest of the season because I don't have that cash in the bank to then do it. And I would be, I could still do it in coming weeks, but I would be relying upon downgrading Hobbs to Cully and then bringing in Marshall next week. So could still do it and be left with 1 trade, but it means that it would probably eat into that 219K that I get from downgrading Hobbs to Cully. But yes, quickly in reference to your question, I don't think I'd accept a 0 because I do need a win to at least secure win to secure a final spot. So yeah, we'll see how we go, but I don't think that'll be on the table at the moment. Mason says, just be wary. I lost like 55K in 1 week with Gresham. Yeah, exactly right. It's one of those things I think as well that if like the big risk I think in gambling on Marshall, like going for Baker to Marshall, is that Baker plays in the first game. So I would be locked into Marshall. I could do the old, trick move where I can trade Marshall then to another player and it only cost me 1 trade because virtually then it'd be like Baker for,
if I was to trade into a Cully, for example, it would be Baker for Cully. And it kind of cancels out the fact that I had Marshall in the team, if you get what I mean. It's kind of a bit of a quirk in the trading, trade in, trade out, I don't know what you call it, algorithm or setup in the back end. So, yeah, I mean, that's probably one thing I could do is if Marshall is a laid out, and it helps that they do play, obviously, in that last game against West Coast, I could trade Marshall to Cully and then bring in Marshall next week. And sort of do my planning in reverse, because I'm looking to bring in Marshall this week and then bring in Cully next week, where he's on the bubble and about to play his third game. So, yeah, that's probably the one option I'll take. And I'm just not happy with Baker, and I can't see his scoring going up. Now, for those of you as well that have tuned in, also, I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip, a little bit of a guide. There's a really handy website that I recommend you guys use, and it has been set up by a guy that's well known in the daily fantasy sports arena, Draft Stars and the like, and it has a really good database for centre bounce attendances, ruck attendance percentage, kick-in percentages and the like. So you would have heard us reference it a few times on the podcast. And yeah, here we go. I'll just see if I can I'll pull it up for you. I'm just trying to get it up in another tab, and I'll quickly flick across to that. Alrighty, so it is called, I'll just bring up another tab here. So it is called DFS Australia, and I don't know if many of you or if any of you have heard about it. Awesome site, and it does have a paid area to it as well, which has access. It gives you access to like historical data from, I think, up to about 5 seasons, sort of collation of data. But the good thing about this is if you click on the drop-down box, and you'll see here, it has been skewed more so for AFL fantasy, but it does have relevance for SuperCoach, because obviously there's a lot of correlation there, different scoring system. But when it comes down to the raw data, the raw stats for CBAs, kick-ins, ruck contests, and they even have heat maps as well, which is available on the AFL app, I think, if you're a Telstra customer. So this has it all. So full kudos to the guy that has set up this website. It is an absolute godsend. So check it out, dfsaustralia.com. But just to give you a bit of an idea as to what you can sort of leverage it off, if you go to, where are we? So CBA attendances, and then click on, so if I'm looking at Baker, for example, it gives you the historical data for the last 3 years, if you wanted to look that far back. But obviously 2022, looking at sort of the downward trend with Baker scores, and I know he has been given a little bit of inside time from time to time, not as much as what you'd want, but just having a look here. So it's dropped off the past 2 weeks compared to rounds 15 and 16. And if you cross-check it with his scores of 2 weeks ago, you'll probably see that's part of the reason why SuperCoach is just going slow on me. So his previous 2 weeks to that against Geelong West Coast, 126 and a 90. And in those games, he had CBAs of 47%, 49%. And then the past 2 weeks in round 17 and 18, he's had 0% and 0%. And he struggled. So that's part of the reason why I'm not confident of him actually, attaining those heights that he did in prior weeks. So that's why this website here is awesome. Just to sort of predict, I guess, in a sense, it's kind of hard. You are always playing a bit of a guessing game, but it's data like this that comes in handy, and you'll hear Liam and myself always mention it on the podcast, and that's the reason why, because you can sort of extrapolate and use that as a bit of a guide in a sense as to whether or not a player scoring can sort of be over a bit of an upward trend, or if it's sort of nosediving. That's part of the reason why. And if you have a look as well, it wasn't working for me the other day, so we'll see if it works now, but heat maps. So if you want to see if a player is playing more time up forward, say for Baker, for example, even though he's getting 0% CBAs across the past 2 weeks, it could mean that he's playing in defense, in shorts role, but he's just not in good form. If his role is favorable and he's still playing in defense, you'd think, maybe he's just had a couple of off weeks, and it could actually be on the rise. But
if his heat map is showing he's playing a prominent amount of time up forward, that is a big danger. So we'll go to Richmond and we'll see if it's working this time. It wasn't working the other day. Liam Baker, and I don't think it's working. Come on. No, I think the website's struggling. Usually it pops up with a heat map. No, that's not it. It's not the black bar that's popping up, but I could actually find it on the AFL app. Sorry, I'll just quickly go through and I'll put my phone up so you can have a look. Where are we? But virtually, for those of you who don't have access to this in the AFL app, go to this website. Really awesome. No worries, Taylor. Taylor has said Tuesday will come in handy for sure. Yeah, it's really good. If you play AFL fantasy, it's probably more skewed towards that when it comes to sort of head-to-head historical scoring and stuff, favorable matchups. But you'll notice Liam and myself also talk about what is it? Defensive matchup. What is it? Team v defense, I think it's called. And it's like how a player historically matches up against a team based upon that team's performance across the ground. So if they give a lot of points away in their defense and you have like a Doherty, like if Richmond, for example, giving away a heap of points to the defense, playing Carlton in the round coming up, you can probably say Doherty, his score should be higher than what his average is, that sort of stuff. But just going back to the heat map, and let's see if I can pull it up for, where is he? Baker. Probably just scroll down to the bottom because there he is, 9 disposals. Tasha tracker. Let me guess, it's probably not going to come up, is it? That's probably why it's not working on the website. Oh, no, here it is. Whoops, don't know if you can see that, but there you go. So that's offensive half. He's played 88% of time up forward, which is what was happening across the first 8 rounds of the season for Baker. So that is really danger signs for Baker. And the reason why I'm not going to persist with him, if I was going to stick with him, I could all but guarantee that his price is going to dip to what it's projected to, which is around about 20K. And I'd probably prefer to take the gamble on Marshall at this stage, even coming off the back of a limited preparation with illness. So I was probably giving you a little bit of an insight as to like how I sort of predict things going forward from week to week when it comes to matchups and stuff. So I'll go into that as well, just quickly, so you can see how that comes up. So yeah, it's called defense v position. And if you were to, let me just get up the fixture, go through this round. I'll see if I'll pinpoint one for you. That's good. So, okay, straight away there. So GWS, again, this is skewed for fantasy. GWS give away the most points to opposition teams in the ruck. So you'll see there, 8.1% is, or 8.1 is the amount of points. I think it's the amount of points on average above the season average compared to other teams, if that makes sense. So you'd probably say for Carlton, because they're facing GWS this weekend, if you had Pitney, for example, or De Koning, probably it's a bit hard because they're going to be sharing the ruck mantle. Pitney should take the number 1 ruck mantle, you'd think. His scoring should be above his normal average from week to week. Pulling out a better one because, yeah, it's probably works better if a ruckman has the number 1 mantle outright without having to share it, because it does become a little bit murkier there, factoring in a second ruckman. Melbourne, for example. Okay, Melbourne, they're facing the Bulldogs. So designated kicker are those players who take a majority of kick-ins. So it goes without saying who that is. It is Bailey Dale. And they give up 11.3 points on average above the season, season average compared to other teams. So if you have a Bailey Dale, he's going to have an absolute blinder, you'd think, because they play unaccountable footy, Melbourne, in terms of their sort of forward pressure on defenders. So they just let, team defenses in their opposing teams absolutely just have a field day. So that's pretty much it. So that's just a quick insight. I won't go into too much detail there, but yeah, it goes without saying this website is absolutely a godsend. So check that out. Taylor, yes, I won't flick off it yet because you've asked a question there. I'll get onto that very, very shortly. So Merritt should score well this round v Collingwood. Yes, exactly right. So by far and away, they give 2.8 points more than the next worst team in Hawthorn. So absolutely correct. Merritt, especially as we've seen without Parrish being there, a bulk of the points are going towards Merritt. So if you have Merritt this week, I would be 100% considering him as a VC option. I think it makes it a little bit harder because they are playing, the second last game. Probably as a captaincy option if your VC option doesn't work. Absolutely. He should score very, very well this round. But it's not a airtight strategy looking at this. I mean, as we know, the rule of averages say that you're not going to have those consistent. What is it? What do we normally say? Past performance is an indicator of future performance. So it is a little bit of a guide. Majority of the time it works, unless this team in Collingwood change their team structure and strategy in limiting the amount of ball use by midfielders to opposing teams. So if McRae comes out or says to Collingwood, all right, we need to clamp down on the amount of loose ball that opposition teams are getting against us, then it's not going to work. So it will depend from week to week, and they may alter it depending on their matchup. So it isn't an airtight strategy, but good guide to use, absolutely. So just going back to to your question. Taylor, you've said you've got Ware and D'Ambrosio, really hoping one of them get a gig. I think Ware's going to keep his spot, thankfully. Unfortunately, I actually traded him out, as luck would have it, to D'Ambrosio. So the SuperCoach guides there are giving me a bit of a slap across the back of the head. But I did need to do it in order to make a little bit of cash, which, yes, I think actually went towards bringing in Baker. So hasn't been a good run of trades over the past few weeks for me, that's for sure. But I am confident that we're considering the Giants have brought in all these sort of rookie players at the expense of senior players. I think Ware's going to keep his spot. I'm pretty confident of that, more so than D'Ambrosio, unfortunately for me and others out there that are watching that have D'Ambrosio as their Hail Mary cover. So, and just moving on to a question there from Mason. Who would you trade in to create a forward defensive swing, Callum Brown or Wade Dirksen? Will have enough for my final upgrade either way, but down to one trade after this. Okay, so down to one trade after this proposed trade to create that forward defensive swing, I assume. Let me have a quick squeeze at the Giants lineup. I think Callum Brown, is he out of the side or is he in? Callum Brown's listed in the starting 18 for the Giants. So you'd always want to be going for the player that's playing. So I would say that I would go for Callum Brown over the two. He is Callum Brown. Going back to his price, though, I imagine is what am I doing? Oh, Callum M. Brown. It's a little bit of a higher price point there. Obviously, 182.9. He's another one on the bubble. We obviously didn't talk about him in the podcast because he's not really of relevance, and his spot on the team is pretty shaky, considering he came on as a sub for Kelly, I think it was, on the weekend. Oh, no, it was for someone else, sorry. Can't remember who it was. But yeah, considering he's named and should take his place in the side, and like I just said about Weir, with the Giants bringing in so many rookies, I would say that his spot long term, because it looks as though that's an indication that the Giants are just like, yep, okay, season's done for. Let's just blood as many rookies as we can, or sort of mid-tier players, and just check out to see if they have what it takes to retain a list spot. Where a lot of, I think, teams that are now realizing they're going to finish outside the 8 will start doing. So there is a little bit of hope for those of us out there with the likes of Hobbs, Clark to less. I mean, Richmond should make the finals potentially at this stage. I mean, it didn't help they lost on the weekend. But Owens, I'm surprised he hasn't got a spot. But if the Saints don't sew up a final spot over the coming weeks, he may be one that gets blooded. I'm surprised he didn't get a go. But I think he had COVID on the weekend, so he may be a little bit underdone. That's probably part of the reason why he hasn't got a spot. But the other option there in Wade Dirksen, and it depends as well, Mason, were you looking to bring someone in that's a genuine loophole as well as a forward defensive sort of DPP activation, or were you looking to bring someone in that's going to play potentially as well? Because Wade Dirksen, yeah, you'd say probably he's not going to play. Yeah, I don't know much about him actually. So he's probably just a dead rookie and a genuine loophole option. So always go for the player that's going to play, I think, just in case come the last, few weeks of the season. Okay. Mason says, no, it doesn't have to be one that plays. Who have you got on your bench in forward and defense? Because if you're well stocked, you could probably get away with a Wade Dirksen if you do need another DPP loophole option. But if you have enough loophole options, I would be going for Callum Brown, because chances are, if he gets injured and if he gets omitted, and even if you're well stocked on the bench, your SuperCoach gods can turn the tables on us so quickly when it thinks when you think you're well stocked enough on the bench, and then there comes a week when you actually do need someone to come off the bench as cover. Especially during SuperCoach finals, you'd be kicking yourself if you go for someone who's a genuine loophole when you had the chance to get someone that was playing at the time. So I would be going, yeah, okay. Yep. So Mason says rather someone who might be covering. Yep. So I'd be going for Callum Brown then. He's obviously playing this week. And you should say that he should get a bit of a go in the coming weeks to close out the season. So I'd go for him. But you've got to weigh it up as well. The one big factor between Wade Dirksen and Callum Brown is there's around about 80K discrepancy, 102.4K to Wade Dirksen compared to Callum Brown, 182.9. So will that 80 odd K help you with better utilizing your last trade? So keep that in mind as well. So I'd be looking at the moment, just in terms of forecasting ahead for that last trade, who are you looking to use it on? And if you had an extra 80K in the bank, would it sort of make the difference between I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a Steele to compare to like a Rory Laird, for example, or someone else. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So is cash a bigger factor, or is in going for the non-playing player DPP option in Dirksen, or is having cover the better option? So it comes down to, again, just how much cover you've got in defense and up forward. Okay, so you're looking to, okay, yep. So it's good that you've identified, sorry, Taylor, I'll get to your question in just a tick, mate. Mason leaves me with 125K with getting Brown. Should have plenty to upgrade someone to Stewart. Yep. Well, that's good, mate. Because if that extra 80K isn't going to afford you, if you're going to have enough cash to bring Stewart in and getting Brown, who is an option to play from week to week as cover, absolutely do it. Because if you're going for that non-playing player in defense in Wade Dirksen, it's going to give you 200K, and you only need 125 or whatever for Stewart. You're going to be 80K just rotting in your bank without any trades left. So smart move, mate. So really like that. I'd be going for Callum Brown in that case. Absolutely. Moving to Taylor. Sorry, mate. Getting to your question now. And just had another person join us as well. Feel free to put any comments down in the YouTube chat here. And likewise, for anyone that's watching this stream on repeat, feel free to put any questions, comments down in the comment section below, and we'll happily or hit us up on Twitter as well, and we'll happily help you out there. Taylor asks, I can do a downgrade McDonald, Liam and I's favourite, from Hawthorn, and upgrade Ware and bring in Doherty, pushing short to D7, M9 cover swing. Would go down to one trade. And then he continues on. However, McDonald is my only current playing cover player. Do you think having more than one cover player is more important than having one strong cover player? Okay, there's a fair bit to digest here. So, McDonald isn't the strongest of cover. I'll admit that. But he is cover nonetheless. I think his spot in Hawthorn's team will be strong enough to close out the end of the year and continue playing until the end of the season. So that's sort of the one thing there. I actually think in this case, yes, I would be, because virtually in this scenario here, what you'd be doing is, so to be Ware to Doherty. Virtually this is what it is. So it's Ware to Doherty and then McDonald to Short in a sense. In terms of, what you'd be ending up with. So I think Short is a D7 M9 cover swing that you can then, if you have someone that you can loophole in his score off the bench, if he puts in a blinder, he's pushing up there again. He scored 100 for the first time in weeks. But I really like that trade. Really awesome. Even though it brings it down to one trade, the fact that you have Short as cover or potential loophole option to loop his score in off the bench is absolutely awesome, compared to, even before you get to factoring the fact that you've got Doherty, having Weir on the bench, who you may not even need to use for the rest of the year, as well as a McDonald. McDonald's not going to give you too much cover anyway. If you do need him from week to week, what's he going to punch out, a 40 or a 50? Not too good. Compared to that, to Doherty, who's averaging 111.4 in recent weeks. 109.7 in recent weeks. He's kind of hovered around that 90 to 100 mark. That there blows McDonald out of the water. And same goes for Short as well. He's probably scoring a little bit more than Weir, which is funny to say, but absolutely, I'd be going for that 100%. Absolutely. I see what you're saying here. So, sorry, I'll go to that question. Worried in coming weeks could lose more than one player in the round. Yes. It's hard without seeing your team, Taylor. So if you want to hit us up on Twitter, you're probably following us. If you're not, it's at SuperCoach_Edge, I think it is from memory. Hit us up there and send through your team, like a screenshot of your team. If you don't want to make it public, then just DM us, no stress. But it's hard to say without seeing the overall cover of your team on the bench, and then also seeing what sort of players you have on field, because chances are now that it's different compared to previous years, where at least now we have a bye built in before in between the round 23 and first week of finals. So those teams that are playing finals, so if you look at my team, for example, so all these guys, bar maybe Sinclair, Short to a lesser extent, will be playing finals. Finals, won't be playing finals, won't be, this is the Hail Mary. Yes, 50-50, yes, should be. No, yes, no, yes, 50-50 and 50-50 again. So just going through there, if you don't know what I'm doing, I'm actually, no worries, Taylor. Just, flick it through on Twitter and be able to help you out there. So what I was doing there is looking at the teams or players that are playing for teams that are going to make finals. And those teams that are going to be making finals or look to be making finals, you would think that because they've got a bye before the first week of finals, that their teams aren't going to rest those players. So Walsh will play out the rest of the regular season. Cripps will. Doherty will. Sicily. I don't know why I counted him as playing finals, because I'm just thinking of Hawthorn from years gone by. But Crisp should be playing finals. Oliver. So those guys should be playing until the end of the regular season, because especially for Melbourne, for example, they want to secure the top spot as minor premiers. Not only get the double chance, but also a home final. So teams that have something to play for, whether it be making finals, making a top four, minor premiership, those are the players that will least likely be rested. Whereas other players, so a Sicily, A Sinclair, maybe. Short, maybe. Miller, even though he's a picture of fitness, probably he's an exception. Laird, maybe. Those players may be rested. Or if players have a niggle, so I hate to say it, but Bontempelli has been one who's been identified as having a shoulder issue that he's been playing through over the past few weeks, even though he's in good form. If it comes round 22, for example, or round 23, which is probably more likely, and the Dogs are out of finals contention, don't be surprised to see players like him. And it's not going to, this isn't a warning that it's going to happen, but this is what the mindset that clubs have nowadays is if a player has a niggle, they would opt to prefer to have them go in for early surgery. So they're back in time for a faultless preseason come the next preseason or next year. So that's something that I'm always looking for. But it is sort of hard to guess. I mean, it doesn't bode well for those of us with Canelio, Himmelberg, but you'd think the top line players, they will continue getting games unless they've got they've been playing through a niggle in order to try and make finals for their team. But yeah, that's kind of one thing that I try and factor in terms of whether or not I need cover on the bench, but it is what it is. But yeah, Taylor, you've said they're worried that in coming weeks could lose more than one player in the round. And yeah, it could happen. I think we've been very fortunate over the past couple of weeks at least that we've only really lost Oliver and Hewitt. And a lot of people still have Weir or they have D'Ambrosio, and fingers crossed this great man can actually play and gets named. But yeah, say for example last week with Hewitt, if Hewitt was out last week along with Oliver, it really would have stretched a lot of teams' depth. So I think don't be surprised, and you're totally right. Expect the unexpected, I think, more than anything, for this to happen. And try and especially if you're gunning for, a head-to-head cash league, a lot of people won't be trying to think ahead that far ahead, and that's probably one thing that I try and do in my strategy anyway. So yeah, that's totally right. But I wouldn't be necessarily bringing in bench cover unless you are sort of doing another trade to afford a bit of extra cash, Mason. So was it Mason that did it? Yeah, Mason, like Mason was doing with his proposed downgrade to a Callum Brown. But yeah, it's hard to see, mate. I'll just actually flick across to Twitter, and I don't know if you flicked it through yet. But if you have, we'll be able to discuss it here. No, you haven't yet. That's all good. All good, mate. We'll reply to you on Twitter, man. So no stress at all there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much my team where it stands. If anyone has any, no stress, no rush, Taylor, man. I was just gonna have a look to see if you'd sent it through. But yeah, if you're sending it through now, I'll stick around for a couple more minutes. Long term, I guess. Plans for my team. I haven't really thought too far ahead. So let me just have a swig of water. I try and sort of plan out 2 weeks ahead. It is harder, obviously, this time of year with injuries, suspensions, players getting dropped, COVID, all that sort of stuff. But without giving away too many secrets, I think, yes, Hobbs will be one to go down to Cully potentially to then fund my last trade, which potentially at this stage, could either be an inclusion of Stewart. So I'm trying to look for primos that will give me a little bit of an edge, hence the name SuperCoach Edge, or could potentially be a Jack Steele at the expense of, say, a Cripps, who hasn't been performing too well. Or it could be someone else. It could be I could swing Himmelberg back into defense and then upgrade a Short, for example, to a Bont, or the like. So I've got a few options there anyway. With that DPP swing, I can potentially do it. But first and foremost, I want to get Marshall in, and yeah, that's pretty much it. What I was going to show was actually no, you've already seen it, like in terms of the Marshall discussion, but yeah,
I'll just bring up this again. Let us know when you flick through your team as well, Taylor, because I'll jump into that straight away and we'll wrap up the stream shortly. But if anyone has any other questions or comments or anything you want to say, feel free to pop it in the comments section, which either side it is, or down below. If you're watching this on repeat, and I'll be able to help you out. No stress there. What was I looking at? Ruck contests. Actually, no, sorry. I was looking at ruck contests. So I just wanted to have a look at Rowan Marshall. So you'll be able to see there, and I'll just bring up an alternate tab for Marshall. So the good thing about Marshall, and the one reason I want to get him in my team as well, up forward, is because it then gives me cover with Teakle, with the forward ruck swing. So it activates that DPP swing, which is sort of the one swing that I'm missing at this stage, and gives me cover for these guys here because I am worried about them when I run out of trades. Even though Teakle apparently is slated to come back either next week or the week after. So that'll be handy cover anyway if he comes back. But that's part of the reason why I want to get Marshall. And it also helps that Ryder's out of the team. But to give you an idea, I was going to have a look at last year as well, because you'll be able to see. So you see, we've spoken ad nauseum, and you would have seen the graphic on our Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, and discussions about him on the podcast and vodcast. But Marshall, even dating back to last year, you'll see here when Ryder didn't play, so he got injured round 20, 21, 22, and 23, the last 4 rounds of the year. And you'll be able to see there for Marshall, his last 4 rounds of the year, 158, 123, a 73, bit of a downward game there, but it is what it is, and then a 120. So he absolutely smashed it in the last 4 games of the season. And just his stat breakdown, you'll see there, absolutely smashed it. Helped the last game as well, that kicked the 2 goals, obviously. But, yeah, compared to the previous weeks. And he scored well as well against Port because he had 2 goals there in that game where I think he was sharing the ruck with Ryder last year. Yes, he was. So that's pretty much it. So, yeah, there's enough data there both this year where he's played without Ryder and last year as well where he's played without Ryder to suggest that his floor is around about 100 and his ceiling, as you see there, 158. So looking pretty good there. Alrighty, Taylor, I'll flick across to your teammate because you flicked it across there. Hasn't updated. So, mate, did you flick it through to my personal Twitter or the SuperCoach Edge one? Let me have a quick look. I can't see it coming through, mate. I'm not too sure. Or did you private message us? Maybe. I don't know. Oh, yes, you did. Sorry, mate. Okay. I won't put this up on the screen just in case you don't want it seen by others. But if you don't care, then let me know, mate, and I'll show others. Yeah, cheers, mate. Got it. Yep. In the messages. Oh. Geez, what up? Are you on Android or something, mate? Look, it looks really, really stretched. Oh, no, the prices are really like squashed for some reason. Alrighty, so all good. So I'll keep it private if you want, mate. No stress. So I won't show the world your team if you wanted to keep it away from prying eyes. But I'll just read it out, unless you, on Android, okay. Unless you want me to show, but I can roll through it anyway. It's just the other people tuning in will have no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah. So at the moment, so what were you saying? So you wanted to downgrade McDonald and upgrade Weir. Downgrade McDonald, upgrade Weir. Okay. So McDonald. Okay, so would McDonald go down to just a... Are you sure? Okay, no worries. He's just said I'm happy to put it up. Okay. 1 sec, man. I'll see if I can add it to... Let's see if this works. Okay, there we go. All good, mate. No worries. I'm just wary of some people like to be secretive with their teams if they're in cash leagues and stuff. So, but we can always go through and edit this out if any of them tune in afterwards. But so just want to know, mate, because you've said there that where is it? So you want to downgrade McDonald and upgrade Weir. So Weir, he would be on field for Hewitt for this week, and McDonald is on your bench. Okay, yeah, Butler's not playing. Okay. Who would you look to bring in for McDonald? That's probably my one question for you. Because if you upgrade Weir to Doherty, it means that, yeah, you can obviously swing Hewitt into the midfield or short. But yeah, you're right. I would be playing short off the bench because his scoring hasn't been too crash hot, or even crisp, depending on who's playing first in the given round. I'd be using that sort of whoever's playing first, and then if they score well, loop their scores off the bench if you can. But you've got D'Ambrosio, and that's the other factor, is that he could come back into the team and he could play the rest of the year. He could play no more games. He could play one game here or there. But yeah, the fact that it would activate that. Sorry, just looking at your team. So at the moment, it doesn't look as though, unless there's someone. Okay, gotcha, mate. Gotcha. So you'd swing Rioli. Sorry, I'll pop this up here. In the comments, you've said probably downgrade McDonald to a defensive midfielder swing, such as Burgoyne, who is in the side for Port this week as well, which is good. You could probably, you could swing McDonald into your midfield, put Rioli up forward. Only thing in doing that is it obviously disables your mid-forward swing if you were going to do that. But yeah, you could do that. Rioli into the forward line, McDonald into the midfield, and then trade him down to Burgoyne, which would then, yes, activate the swing between, say, a short and Burgoyne. Burgoyne's good. I think he's a good option. I was really surprised to see him omitted last week, or at least be the sub, because he has been playing well enough. And I think it's probably that case again. If Port get to a point where they know there's no chance of making the finals, then they're pretty much they're gonna blood youngsters. And being, a son of a Port out of the great, I think they will blood him and play him. So I really like him as a downgrade option, 117k or thereabouts, I think, from memory. Absolutely. So yeah, I like that. It affords that swing. Only downside is, yes, it does disable that mid-forward swing if you were going to do that. And then you've said, okay. So you're down to one trade. Okay, the fact that you're just looking at you're down to one trade off the back of that is it would mean that you'd be using that as like a smash glass in case of emergency trade. Like you'd be using it in case someone goes down that's a big name, or going into the last week, if you want to use it as a luxury trade, you could. But if you were down to that scenario, I'd only do it if you have solid cover across the field. And yes, if you were going to go with that, short would give you cover in defence and in the midfield, so not too bad there. But it would leave you short-changed in the forward line, which is a bit shaky. But you could also, take the viewpoint that with that last trade, you'd use it or reserve it only for the forward line if someone goes down.
to a point, I guess. Could you trade Butler instead for down to Burgoyne, for example? That's probably one question I'll have for you. And then have enough money to still afford to upgrade Weir to Doherty. Yep, it would disable swing, which wouldn't be great. Another thing to weigh up. Do you think I should just bring in Weir Ambrosio? Just back in Weir and Ambrosio and upgrade Short to Stewart next round? I don't mind that either. I think Weir, as I was saying earlier, I think he will play out the rest of the season. Ambrosio is a bit shakier. Turns out he actually played in the VFL last week, even though I thought he was sort of rested off the back of that corky, which doesn't bode well. But he is on the extended interchange at the moment, and even if he doesn't play this week, there is a chance that he could potentially come in the weeks to follow. So I actually don't mind this either. I mean, Stewart, as I'm not too sure how much research you've done to it, but Stewart is very much a pod going into head-to-head league finals. And as we know, he can score out of his absolute anus. He's at 11% of teams, which for a primo, with the scores he's busting out, is pretty serviceable. Like those scores, if you have those scores, discount that because he obviously got concussed. I think it was, he did. He got concussed. Concussed or something happened to him. But yeah, if he's busting out these sort of scores in the finals, that's going to win you a final almost exclusively off the back of his scores. He also comes back next week, I think, from memory, against the Bulldogs. So, I mean, it's a good way to finish the season. The Cats have a super soft end to the season. Bulldogs, they should beat up on them. St Kilda, by that stage, it's probably working if they can make finals or not. They may actually just throw in the towel. He should beat up on them. Gold Coast and West Coast Eagles. So just having a quick squeeze at this website again. Hand to the website, defense v position. And I'd want to be looking at those teams he's playing in the back end. Sorry, I'll get to Doherty in a second, but just with Stewart, you've actually parked my interest there. So he plays Dogs, St Kilda, Gold Coast, West Coast. Okay, so we're looking at points conceded to opposition defense. So Dogs, they concede a few points. They're 1, 2, 3. They're actually the 4th best team to score against as a defender. So I don't mind that. St Kilda, they're the 2nd best team to score against when you're a designated kicker, which is him. Gold Coast, 1.8. So I think they're the 5th. Yeah, the 5th best team to score against as a defender. And then West Coast, they're actually, surprisingly, they've actually amended a lot of these deficiencies. They were like, at one stage, they were like the worst in all these categories. And they're actually not too bad as a team defensively anyway. But that may be going down. I haven't been tracking it over the past few weeks. But without McGovern there's a little bit of a hole there. So that may be on a downward trajectory, but that's just a guess. But yeah, his end to the season is really, really good. Really, really good. So I like Stewart as an option because, yeah, if it affords you the fact that you can go for someone of Stewart, if I was to rank, okay, it comes down to this. Would you prefer to go for Doherty and Short, use Short as like DPP defensive midfielder cover, or would you straight out prefer to go for Stewart and then have Weir and Ambrosio as cover? Like I said, Weir should have good security, Ambrosio less so. Weir's scoring well enough to be cover as well. So if you were to go down that route and then bring in Stewart, I actually like that because I think his scoring ceiling is better than Doherty. And his floor is probably similar to Doherty. At a guess. Yeah, very similar floor, I would say. And Doherty as well, just to have a look at, the other thing to look at is Doherty's end to the season. And as a Carlton man, I know firsthand it is quite tough because after this week, we're playing Adelaide, which is so-so, but he doesn't really score traditionally too well against the Crows. Then we're playing a top 4 side in Brisbane, top 2 side potentially, or top 4 anyway, with Melbourne, and then Collingwood in the last round. So all
3 real tough games to end out the season. So given that, I would probably go for Stewart, in all honesty. If I was in your position, I would be going down that route, even though the other route allows you to play short off the bench and loop him in. That's probably the one sort of ace up the sleeve you could use for that to sort of make up a difference with Doherty. But I would only go down that route, I think, if Short was back in form again, and then you could potentially loop him off the bench. But because of Doherty's fixture, compared to Stewart's fixture anyway, Doherty loses out there. And yeah, it means that you maintain your, is that right? You maintain your DPP swing between the forward and midfield, potentially. Let me go back to your team. Yes, it does. So you still have McDonald in your, no, sorry, you wouldn't, would you? You'd still be trading McDonald. Okay. Sorry, you've said here, Butler wouldn't net me enough cash to upgrade to Doc, unfortunately. I honestly like the Stewart idea, but it could leave me weak on the bench. Yep, I like the Stewart route too, yeah. Like, I would back in Weir and like D'Ambrosio. You've actually got like one really solid option, I think, in Weir, and a sort of a 50-50 option in D'Ambrosio. Yeah. Either way, you're deactivating your forward midfield swing, aren't you? Looking at that. So, oh, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, mate. It's a tough one. But virtually, so you've said here have to have 110K, so don't need. Okay. Well, that changes the game then. I would go down that route. Yep. Because CMAC will give you cover for the end of the year. I'm confident he's going to play every single game unless, knock on wood, injury strikes or suspension. And yeah, it still opens up that midfield forward swing. Rioli could still come back into the side as well for Richmond, so that could open up an option as well if need be, without having to swing McDonald into the midfield. But that gives you cover across the field. And then when you factor in Teakle as well, coming back potentially for Port either next week or the week after, you've got coverage across the field, which is good. So, yeah. So would that mean then in that case, Taylor, that not needing to downgrade CMAC? Yeah, shit, okay. That means if you've got an extra trade up your sleeve. Is that right? So you can just go straight Weir to Stewart, use it 110K, and then you have 2 trades at your sleeve. I'd prefer that than burning 2 trades and bringing in Doherty. Absolutely, hands down. Because then you can, if you're worried about cover as well, having an extra trade up your sleeve as opposed to the other scenario means that you're well stocked if something happens to your primos. But for those sort of weekly 1-week injuries, like with Hewitt and Oliver last week, that's where the likes of Weir could come in handy, or D'Ambrosio or CMAC, Rioli the like. So yeah, and then you've got 2 trades for the next. What are we down to after this week? 20, 21, 22, 23. Is that right? 4 weeks. Yeah, so you've got 2 trades for the next 4 weeks, or a trade every 2 weeks. So that's a really good. Sorry, short to Stewart. Sorry, what am I saying? I need to sleep. Yeah, short to Stewart would be. Yeah, and then having Weir as your cover. So if Hewitt, God forbid, is out next week as well, at least you've got Weir as well. Yeah. And if Hewitt's out next week, you could potentially trade him to a Stewart and keep Short as the other option. Just sort of thinking forward, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. So, yeah. What do you think? Short, Crisp or Short as the upgrade to Stewart? Tough one. Yeah, they've both. I'll just rely back on the DFS Australia guide website. For those of you who've tuned in late, check out this website, dfsaustralia.com, and it's got all the stats that you need. You can check out sort of defensive matchup exploitation like this. You can see which teams concede the most points in certain areas. You can check out ruck contest percentage. You can check out CBA percentages, kick-ins, heat maps, everything else. So just wanted to check out crisp, which is one thing I haven't really had a look at. So he's still getting, CBAs for at least half the game. So I don't know why his scores have actually tapered off, or at least fluctuated. Like he's, come on, here we go. So his past month has been putrid. So see if we can work out why it is. So he had 70% there in that game against the Giants. He scored 80. And then sort of the less CBAs, he's actually scored half decently. He's a bit of a pinch hitter. But then obviously across that period there, he's actually done all right as well. I just think he's out of form, in all honesty. So I think he will come back into it. I'm less confident in short, really, because he's still playing in the midfield. So with his CBAs. Well, okay, that's interesting. I had no idea. So he's actually played the least amount of CBAs since round 6. So I wonder if he was back in defence. He may have been. Alrighty, so let me just bring up, the heat maps aren't going to work, but if not, I'll bring it up on my phone. That's interesting. So if that's the case, heat maps aren't working. I'll just bring it up on my phone and I'll just show you the screen. Because I just assumed that he just had a bit of an interesting game. So Mason, yep, you've played forward more last week, and he scored well. Well, not well by his standards, but better than he has been anyway. Let me squeeze. So he had 24 disposals and 1 goal, 1. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So I'll just show you this. So he played 70% of time in the offensive half, but as a high half forward, you'll see there. So pushing up towards the wing. So not exclusively a stay-at-home half forward or forward pocket. So you'll see there that red spot. He's been getting his sort of between the wing and half forward or a forward pocket there. So I imagine a lot of those scores would have been, forward 50 entries and whatnot. So no, he kicked 1 goal, 1 last week. It was a little bit offline. Yeah, I'll just bring up our old tried and tested fan footy, which annoys me now because there's so many ads that pop up. See, there's another ad. Ads that pop up on the website. Now I got to pay the bills, but geez, look spam. Sorry, just having a quick look at his breakdown of his scoring. Sorry, this is a long way around comparing crisp and short, Taylor, but this is what we're addressing for those of you who've tuned in late. Where are we? So short, it's funny, he finished on the bench. Yeah. Okay. Well, the one thing I've noticed first up is he had actually the least number of clangers that he's had in a long while, which is good because that's been hurting his score over recent weeks. He's kicking, setting disposals. Disposal efficiency wasn't the best, actually, 70%, which was sort of in the lower quartile, the lower third of the team. 6 marks would have helped, and his meters gained. There you go. That's where a bulk of his scoring came from as well. Meters gained, 533. So that was part of his role, I think, in pushing up to that high half-forward wing role. I don't have the breakdown there of his inside 50s, but if I was to guess, I'll just bring it up on my app. If I was to guess, it would have been high enough. Inside 50s, actually. There they are there. Where are they? Sorry. This app is like the most annoying thing ever. It's not popping up. Why isn't it popping up? Usually comes up. Or is that it? Intercept possessions and clearances meters gained. For some reason, it's not popping up. So let me just try something else in the app. If any of you guys have access to, actually, it might be on the AFL website. I just hardly use it. I always use my app. So, okay. This is the other thing with the AFL website. Like, you've got a back error and it doesn't work. So shit, their website. It's been terrible for years now. Remember, I don't know how young you guys are, but they used to have like the scores in the bottom right-hand corner here during game day. And it was the best thing ever. Now they have it along the top, and it's not user-friendly at all. Okay, so match center. Come on. It just takes so long to load things. It's like, come on. Player stats, okay. Jeez. Okay. Okay, so inside 50s. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, there we go. Suspicions were correct. So Jaden Short had the equal most inside 50s, which is what made up a bulk of his points on the weekend. So if he plays that role again this weekend, I'm confident he should be scoring around about the same as last week. So, yeah, interesting. So equal most inside 50s. His score involvements also were the third most, which, again, bulk of his points. Intercepts, actually, because he was playing it forward, there wouldn't be many. I think it was 2 or something. Tackles, inside forward 50. No. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Don't imagine there's many. Sorry, my cat's just jumped in and he's on the scratching post. I don't know if you can hear. But yeah, anyway, that's pretty much the reason why Short Score had a bit of an upward trend last weekend. So I would guess that he should score well yet again. But again, you don't need to make this decision until next week, at least, when Stewart is on the cusp of his return. So see how Short scores this weekend and how Crisp scores. If Short scores as well as he did last week, I would probably say there's still reason enough to get rid of him. But by the same token, if Crisp scores as crap as he did last week, I would probably punt him over Short, in all honesty. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because you could really go either way with those guys. Those two guys, that I've got them in my team, and I had no idea how you'd break it down between the two, apart from what I've just done there in trying to guess as to what they're going to be scoring longer term. So I'm just on my phone, just trying to look at Crisps. Yeah, you're totally right, Taylor. You just asked there. Forward is a bit more of a volatile position. Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is, in playing as a forward, and you'll see with Baker as well, that's part of the reason why his scoring was capped, was as a forward, your score is dictated by the overall performance of the team. So you would have seen there that I've got it up here. So Richmond, for example, on the weekend, they scored 11 goals, 22, even though they had a fair few number of opportunities, 33 scoring shots to 22. They didn't convert it to a score. And I think Baker only scored that, what was it, 1 goal, 1 or whatever it was, which just isn't good enough. Like, if he was, I think because if they were so inaccurate, if he was scoring more than 1 goal, his score would have been bumped up, especially considering the margin. But yeah, I mean, as a forward, your scoring is dictated by the overall performance of your midfielders virtually. If their midfielders get absolutely trounced in the middle, it means that as a forward, you're going to see the ball much less. Whereas if you're playing in defense, it doesn't really matter to an extent as much. I mean, you're going to see the ball in defense no matter what, unless you're playing
sorry to pick on North Melbourne, but they're probably an exception over the past couple of weeks because they've come good to their credit. But if you're playing someone like a North Melbourne as a defender, chances are you won't see much of the ball because the ball's not going to be down in defence too much. But chances are the ball's going to make its way down there with kick-ins and the like, with switching play. You're still going to get access to the ball. So as a forward, there's still a chance that if your team gets absolutely pummeled by 60 odd points and you don't see any of the ball, obviously it puts a cap or a ceiling on your scoring potential, which is what's happening with Baker here. And yeah, you can't be proactive in trying to get the ball. That's dependent upon the ball coming to you. Whereas as a midfielder, you obviously hunt the ball, get into positions to get the ball. As a defender, you can still hunt the ball. You can get up as an attacking defender, like an Aaron Hall or a Jaden Shaw back when he wasn't playing in that role, or of Loston in their case as well. So that's why, it's more volatile as a position playing as a forward, whether it be a tall forward or a forward pocket or a half forward flanker, that sort of thing. So that's pretty much an insight into the scoring. But yeah, that's the risk I took with Baker. I thought he was getting an opportunity in the midfield, and that was going to persist, or at the very least, when he was taking Short's role alongside Vlosten, that would persist, but it wasn't to be. So he will be out of my side, I think. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, and you've tuned in late, have a wind back, probably about half an hour, and you'll see the discussion that I've had, actually probably near the start, on Baker and why I want to get rid of him for Marshall. That's virtually it, guys. For those of you tuning in late, this is my team. But yeah, you'll see in the first 20 minutes or so, if you tuned in late, as to why I am looking to trade Baker to Marshall. It'll bring me down to 2 trades. And then I'll be looking to potentially trade a Hobbs down to a Cully if he keeps his spot. Hopefully he does, but perform well enough. And Woosha. I don't know why I keep saying Woosha. I'm used to him coaching West Coast. Adam Simpson came out and said he was thrilled with Cully's performance, so he should keep his spot in the team. No worries, Taylor. Anytime, mate. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks also for Mason tuning in from the get-go. It's been another long stream. I don't intend for them to go too long. I need to get off because my brain is fried. But yeah, it's always good to have people join and help you guys out. So as I said earlier on, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below or in the chat here before I sign off, or hit us up on Twitter, which is at @supercoach_edge, or on Facebook, but we are more responsive on Twitter. And that's pretty much it. So best of luck for those of you out there heading into this weekend. And yeah, I'll be interested to see what people are doing with Hewitt, and hopefully you have cover for him off the bench. And I'm crossing my fingers that D'Ambrosio comes on for Essendon, even though I'm not too confident, because it doesn't help that they won, and I can't think of anyone that could make way for him. But I'm crossing my fingers, and I'm hopeful that the SuperCoach gods could be nice enough to me this week. You'll see as well, just a quick sort of intel on Liam. He's down to 0 trades, so he does have Hewitt as well, unfortunately. And I think from memory, he's got D'Ambrosio. So we're both in the same position to an extent. I've still got 3 trades, holding on for dear life. But yeah, if D'Ambrosio doesn't come up, then we'll see. But we'll check in with you guys anyway on Twitter, and feel free to hit us up. Just lastly, so Taylor, you have said cheekily, lastly, are you aching for that sweet clary bacon? Oh, I love that. That's very good. I actually might lead the kick off next week's show with that. I like that. That's aching for the bacon. Absolutely aching for the bacon. Sorry. One last thing. I should have touched on it, but I didn't. Love to see who your VC and C is. For me, I'm going to be going for Laird as my VC. They play Adelaide the 3rd game, so confident given his strong showing of form throughout the whole year virtually. If he punches out a 125, 130, thereabouts, going to lock it in. If he falls below that, I am tempted to roll the dice on Clary. And a lot of people out there I have seen haven't got too much faith in him against the Dogs, which is surprising, because his past few games, even though his most recent one in round 1 this year against the Dogs is only 112 points. Prior to that, last year, he scored 144 and 139. And if we look a bit deeper, his full history, where are you? So 112, 139, 144, and 100. And then 75, 125, 136, 100, 102. So his long form scoring against the Dogs has actually been pretty good. So I don't mind him as that captaincy option. So I am absolutely aching for that sweet clary bacon. Love that, Taylor. Very good, mate. Very catchy. But anyway, that's me. And yeah, that's us, I guess. Liam, by extension, he's here. So if you have any questions for myself or Liam or for both of us as a collective, hit us up on Twitter, on Facebook. And don't forget also, if you're here, it would do the absolute world of, I don't know, it'd mean the world for us anyway. And it'd be really appreciative if you could hit the subscribe button. We're trying to build our subscription and we're doing everything possible to get the channel out there. But we have noticed that the subscriber numbers have been very, very slow compared to the number of subscribers we've got on Twitter and Facebook, which has been a couple of thousand on Facebook and about 1,700 on Twitter. And we are eternally grateful for that and for your support because we do what we do because of you. Pelton didn't know it. So aching for that clary bacon. So if you can subscribe below, that would mean the world to us. So thank you so much if you could do that. And thanks, lastly, for tuning in. Has been a marathon run through of this recap. And thanks, Taylor. Cheers, mate. So if you can do what Taylor's done, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Hoping that person that does that stereotypical like and subscribe and comment below. But no, we do like that. And just all it means is that once we go live with streams like this, once we upload our podcast or vodcast in that sense, you'll get a notification because I think you can click the notification button as well. But even just as a subscriber, it should pop up in your home feed as a subscriber. So that's pretty much it. So thanks so much, guys and girls, and thanks for tuning in. And we'll catch you across the weekend and keep you abreast of any news that comes up. So I really appreciate your support, and we'll catch you then. Till next time, we'll see you later. Catch ya.